Welcome to my channel, The Historic State. In the heat of battle, what is more important, following orders or saving lives? Today's story is about a young pilot who was forced to make that impossible choice. He was judged by the very people he swore to serve. They called him a maverick. They called him a traitor. But his disobedience saved 100 lives. The air in the courtroom was cold, heavy with the weight of judgment. On trial was Lieutenant Jake "Rookie" Riley, a pilot so new his uniform still looked fresh from the factory. He wasn't being accused of cowardice or failure. He was being accused of the opposite, succeeding, but in the wrong way. The prosecution's words echoed in the silent room. Insubordination. Reckless endangerment. A direct violation of the chain of command. But to the 100 soldiers who were still alive because of him, his actions had a different name: courage. To understand how a hero ended up on trial, we have to go back 72 hours to the deadly skies over enemy territory. Lieutenant Jake Riley was a natural. Some said he was born with a joystick in his hand. He could feel the wind, sense the machine's limits, and fly in a way that couldn't be taught from a manual. But in the rigid world of military aviation, this wasn't always a good thing. His squadron leader, Major Callahan, was a man who lived and breathed by the book. He was a decorated veteran who believed that discipline and protocol were the only things that kept soldiers alive. He saw Riley's intuitive flying not as a gift, but as a dangerous liability. The clash between them was constant. In training, Riley would often find a faster, riskier, but more effective way to complete a mission. And every time, Callahan would ground him for a lecture. "There's no room for improvisation in the sky, Lieutenant," he'd bark. The other pilots kept their distance, labeling him Rookie, a name that was both a statement of his inexperience and a warning. Riley was an outcast, a maverick in a world that demanded conformity, desperate for a chance to prove that his instincts were worth trusting. That chance came in the form of a mission codenamed Operation Serpent's Tooth. A platoon of 100 soldiers was pinned down by heavy enemy fire, trapped at the bottom of a deep, narrow canyon known to the pilots as the kill box. Anti-aircraft guns were hidden on the ridges, making any rescue attempt a suicide run. The official plan laid out by Major Callahan was by the book: a high-altitude approach to stay clear of small arms fire, drop the extraction ropes, and get out in under 60 seconds. But Riley saw a fatal flaw. From high above, their helicopters would be slow, easy targets for the guns on the ridges. It was a death sentence. As they neared the canyon, Riley's worst fears came true. Muzzle flashes erupted from the ridges. The lead helicopter was hit, its engines screaming. On the ground, the platoon was about to be overrun. Panic filled the radio chatter. Over the comms, Callahan's voice was iron. "Maintain altitude. Follow protocol." But Riley, watching the scene unfold, knew the protocol was a lie. The book was wrong. And in that split second, he made a choice. Defying a direct order, Riley broke formation. He pushed his helicopter into a steep dive, plummeting into the heart of the canyon. The move was insane. He was flying below the ridges, a hair's breadth from the canyon walls, a maneuver so dangerous it wasn't in any training manual. Major Callahan's voice screamed over the radio, "Riley, what are you doing? I will have you court-martialed." But down in the belly of the canyon, Riley was a ghost. The enemy guns on the ridges couldn't get an angle on him. Using the canyon itself as a shield, he landed amidst the chaos. The pinned-down soldiers who had accepted their deaths scrambled aboard. Under a hail of fire, Riley held his position until every single soldier was inside. He lifted off, scraping the canyon walls as he ascended, and brought all 100 men home. When he landed, he was met with cheers. The men he saved called him a hero, a guardian angel. But their celebration was cut short. Major Callahan met him on the tarmac, his face unreadable. He didn't thank him. He didn't congratulate him. He had him arrested for insubordination. The man who had just saved 100 lives was now a prisoner on his own base. Which brings us back to the courtroom. The case seemed simple. Yes, he had saved them, but he had disobeyed a direct order. The prosecution argued that discipline is the backbone of the military, but then the rescued platoon's commander took the stand. His testimony was powerful. He described the flawed plan, the certainty of death, and how Riley's disobedience was a calculated act of brilliance and bravery. "He didn't break a rule," the commander said, his voice thick with emotion. "He rewrote it." In the end, the court delivered a verdict that walked a tightrope. Lieutenant Riley was found guilty of violating the chain of command, a verdict the military had to deliver to maintain order. But his sentence was a mere slap on the wrist. He wasn't a traitor. But the real verdict wasn't delivered in that room. It was delivered in the hallway outside, where all 100 soldiers he had rescued stood waiting. They didn't speak. They simply stood at attention and gave him a salute. A salute not for an officer, but for a brother. A hero Jake Riley's story became a quiet legend in the aviation community, a lesson not taught in classrooms, but whispered from one pilot to another. It's a reminder that while rules and books provide a map, it's the courage of the person in the cockpit that navigates the storm. Sometimes, the greatest act of loyalty is to trust your own judgment when the rules are leading you to certain death. NNT, thank you for watching the historic state. If this story of courage and conviction moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes, the most important history is written by those who dare to defy it.